What up, dude bros? I'm Frank. This is a video review of two new blasters by Dart Zone. The Accelerator, which is a flywheel semi-automatic blaster fed through the Dart Zone hopper, and the Titanium, which is a spring-powered pump-action blaster also fed through the Dart Zone hopper, but also compatible with the Nerf rival mags. Let's get into the review. Included with each is the blaster itself, its respective hopper, blue and red team indicators, and some balls, along with the instructions, and the Accelerator also comes with a slip-on iron sight. Now I'll go over the externals of each blaster, starting with the Accelerator. The Accelerator, again, is a flywheel-powered blaster that's semi-automatic, so think Strife or Modulus. It's not full auto like a Rapid Strike. And because it's flywheel, of course, it runs on batteries. To get to that, you remove the single Phillips screw here and slide off the battery cover. Remove the battery tray and install 6 D-style alkaline batteries. Does that battery tray look familiar? Yeah, it probably should. It's identical to the Nerf rival battery tray. There's really no advantage of using the alkaline tray from Nerf because the performance would be the same, but the Accelerator is compatible with the rechargeable pack by Nerf, which is just awesome. And I've raved about this product because it's lighter weight than the alkaline comparison, and it yields slightly better performance, and it's also rechargeable, so you don't have to buy new alkalines after you kill them. You can just recharge them. So after you install the batteries, of course, you need some ammo. This one is fed through the gravity-fed hopper right here. The stated capacity, I think, is something low, like 25 rounds. I counted, I was able to fit 35 rounds into this hopper comfortably. To load, you take off the little cap like that, and then you can just drop in balls. The included little orange balls have a different design than the Nerf rival rounds. They have these little lines instead of the little dimples, but they are cross-compatible, so you can use these balls in Nerf rival blasters and Nerf rival rounds in the Dart Zone blasters. And the capacity of the Accelerator is higher than that of the Titanium and the other rival-compatible Dart Zone blasters. But it's an interchangeable hopper, so if you push this little button right here, you can take the hopper out and get the lower capacity one included with the other hopper Dart Zone blasters and slide that right on in there. I wouldn't recommend it because you're lowering your capacity and it doesn't really make sense. The important thing is that this larger capacity hopper will fit into the other Dart Zone blasters. Now the little loading port right here is very similar to the Nerf rival mag, and it is compatible in a way, in the sense that you can put this magazine into the blaster and it stays there and it's fine. However, the loading mechanism in the Accelerator is not compatible with the Nerf rival magazines. This works like a lot of other semi-auto flywheel blasters. It has an injection arm and it pushes the ball into the flywheels. Because the magazine has the spring instead of just gravity like in the hopper, it's pushing the balls down a little harder than what gravity would. So when you pull the trigger and the injection arm goes out, the pressure of the balls prevents the injection arm from withdrawing, so you're not able to fire. It actually just seizes up, which is a huge bummer because these hoppers are kind of finicky with their feeding. Since the hopper is gravity fed, if you like invert the blaster upside down, gravity's going, you know, the other way relative to the blaster, but that disables the blaster from firing. This is a problem with the rival Nemesis, but that hopper is much wider. This is only the width of a single ball, so you can only get out 2 reliable shots before you have to shake the hopper. You'll see that in my firing demo. With the previous Dart Zone blasters and like with the Titanium, if you don't dig the hopper, no big deal, you can just use Nerf rival mags, but the Nerf rival mags are not compatible with the Accelerator in my tests. So pretty big bummer, but moving on to the rest of the overview. If you have any jams or malfunctions, you can open up the access door right here to clear those out. Pretty standard stuff at this point. Moving back to the trigger area. The little orange button right here is the safety. When it's out like this, you cannot pull the trigger. Then you press it in and you're able to pull the trigger. Pretty normal safety mechanism there. This is a flywheel powered blaster, so of course before you fire, you press this lower trigger here to rev up. And then to fire, you press the primary trigger. This is a semi-automatic blaster, not fully automatic. So you have to press the trigger to fire each time. Now the mechanics of this trigger mechanism are a little sloppier than that of something like the rival Hero or even the Zeus. And I complained about the Zeus trigger. This is actually a step below the Zeus. It's a pretty rough trigger and it's not consistent. And it comes down to the same mechanical problem that causes the jam with the Nerf rival magazine. The pressure of the balls pushing down adds friction to the feeding arm. So if the top balls are feeding in a particular way, it makes a really gritty, difficult trigger pull, and it's just not very clean. Does it work? Yes, but it doesn't feel refined. So a little bit of a bummer with the trigger. To the grip now. It's not a super comfortable grip, but it is nice and fat, so it's not like it's cramped like you're using a blaster that's way too small. The shape of it's just not really my taste, but nothing to objectively complain about. Right above the grip area, you have this little blue stripe. I've installed the blue team indicator, but the blaster comes installed with the green, and it includes the blue and the red flags as well. This is very similar to the Nerf rival Phantom Core series when they include the blue and the red flags to attach to the blaster. So you just buy the one blaster and you can switch teams, or if you switch blasters with somebody on the other team, you can very quickly switch these out. To switch the team indicator flag, you can just pry it up, take it off, and then slap in a new one. It's very fast. I think the green one, it just kind of looks bland, like there's just too much green. I like the blue just for the contrast. And the red, I mean, red clashes with orange, so that just looks terrible. Team Blue for life. but pretty cool team switching system up there. And then up right above that, you have two angled rails. These rails are not completely sideways to the blaster or completely on top. It's at like a 30-degree angle, which I think is pretty cool. I really dig rails, so I appreciate that they added them. A rail directly on top wouldn't make much sense because your hopper is right there, so you couldn't use anything. So on the side makes a little bit of sense, and it also includes this little slide-on iron sight system. So it slides on like any other rail attachment. This blaster has a hop-up system, which makes the balls rise a little bit. That increases their range, and it's a performance booster, but when you shoot the blaster angled like this, that's going to make the hop-up unit pull everything off to the side. So it really only work if you held the blaster still and then kind of looked at it sideways, which is just weird. So I'm not a huge fan of the sight system itself, but I appreciate the added rails. And what's even cooler is this rail is compatible with Nerf in-strike attachments. It is a forced fit. It doesn't slide on like an in-strike rail, but it's pretty stable, and I appreciate the cross-compatibility. So now you can just be a straight-up gangster with your side-mounted sight. I have to take my belt off so my pants fall down, and I can be like, then with the hop-up, everything will just be slanting completely sideways. Function aside, it looks tactical, and you know it. So I think I've covered all of the external features. Overall ergonomics of the blaster are irregular, but not completely bad. It doesn't have a stock attachment point, and the proportions of the back stock area, it's not really designed to be a stock. The feel of it reminds me of going to Magic Mountain and playing like laser tag, where you're not supposed to shoulder the blasters, you're supposed to just run around and do that. So kind of odd, but not objectively bad or anything. It is worth noting there's really no sling attachment point, but whatevs, that's the overview of the Accelerator blaster. Next up is the Tactical Strike Titanium. This is very similar to the Powerball, the first Dart Zone blaster that I reviewed that was compatible with the Nerf Rival rounds. It just seems like a slightly modified design, but the overall basics of the blaster are the same. So this is a spring-powered pump-action blaster. This guy down here is the pump handle. That's how you prime. Prime weight is heavy because the blaster is powerful, like other spring-powered Rival blasters. And a notable addition, an air restrictor, so it doesn't sound like you're shattering the plunger tube every time you press the trigger. The shotgun style grip looks certainly much cooler, and that contrasts with the old version of the vertical grip. But after you fire it 50 or 60 times and your hand begins getting a little fatigued, it requires more effort to prime the blaster. And that's because you're using effort to grip in on the handle instead of just pushing back. Compared to something like a vertical grip where you don't have to grip, you can just push back and you don't have to grip at all. No air restrictor. Ah, that hurts. And this blaster is also fed with the Dart Zone hopper. The hopper lid is the same as on the Accelerator and the previous Powerball. You just pull back on the flap like that and then drop in the balls. They advertised the capacity at only 8 rounds. I can comfortably fit 10 balls in the hopper. You can shove 13 balls in there if you want to, but they're too close together and they actually seize up. Because it's a gravity-fed hopper, the balls have to be able to loosely fall around in there in order to feed properly. And right in front of the hopper right here is this little orange button, so you press that and you can pull the hopper off the blaster, which allows you to install the larger 35-round hopper included with the Accelerator if you'd like to, and that works just fine. Looks pretty cool. But more importantly, in my opinion, it allows you to use Nerf Rival magazines. A big selling point of the first generation of this blaster was that you could use the Nerf Rival mags. And that remains the case. However, there are a few feeding issues which I'll cover after my firing demo. But you can, without any issues at all, switch between these two hoppers. Because it's just gravity, you could totally hack this off and like glue on like a milk jug or something and expand that. If you make it too big, of course, the weight of the balls pushing down will screw up your feeding, but you could make it a little bigger if you wanted. We can build it. We have the technology. Back to the overview of the blaster. Moving back a little bit, you have a little unjamming button right here. After you prime the blaster once, you're not able to prime it again. So if you run into a situation where you need to be able to prime it again to clear out a jam or whatever, you can press that, which overrides that lock, allowing you to prime it twice. But moving back to the grip area, it also has a mechanical safety right here. In the protruded position like this, the safety is on, then you press it in and you're hot. Do you need a safety on a toy blaster? No, but it's cool. And the trigger pull itself is what you should expect from most spring blasters. This blaster does not have slam fire, so if you hold down the trigger, it'll just fail to prime, like most blasters without slam fire. And to the grip, now I like this grip a lot. I like it much better than the first generation blaster. The overall ergonomics and shape, and it's also larger and more comfortable to an adult hand. And most of the time when they have these little melee guards, or whatever they're supposed to be for, I think of them so when you want to smack a Zammy in the face, you don't hurt your fingers, because that would hurt as you're, smacking a Zammy in the face. The first concern is the safety of your fingers, not their face. This should actually hurt them more. But typically when blasters have these hand guards, it gets really cramped because they always make it too small. This is oversized, it's very far away from your fingers, and it's also a very long grip, so it's very comfortable. I think they look super cool, but generally when I use them, I get my hand cramped up and I get sick of them. But not this time. It looks awesome and it's comfortable, very just solid grip. No sling mount in the back here or stock attachment point or anything else to point out. This blaster, like the Accelerator, also has the team flag indicator. I have the blue installed because blue team for life, bro. Detaching the team indicator is very similar to the Accelerator. You just pry up on the little handle here. It comes with a green one. I like the contrast in the shell to have the blue, but you can also put on Team Red if you want me to shoot at you. Team Reds are the enemy, bro. Already explained the concept there, so you can very quickly switch teams with the Accelerator and this titanium blaster. So that's the overview of the titanium. Now, super brief overview of the mask, just because, you know, overview, firing demo, analysis. Continuity, bro, I have to stick to it. So the idea here is just like the Nerf Rival mask. It's to give you eye protection as well as face protection, kind of built into a cool looking mask. And this compared to the Nerf Rival mask, I think the Dart Zone mask looks like more intimidating. The bottom here, it almost looks like fangs, like saber-toothed tiger, like not fangs, canines, the big fangs, whatever. The big swords in the tiger's mouth. Like, come on. And maybe I'm crazy, but I also think of like the Spartan helmet from 300. I mean, I'm aware Spartans were real people, but I saw them in 300. They didn't take photographs or video way back then, so I have to look at modern interpretations of the past. But it looks similar to the mask, like in how it comes down. I think it's a more aggressive mask. I think it looks cool. And it's interesting that it says, this is not a protective device in the same way that the Nerf Rival mask does. I've shot at both masks. They will do fine for shooting the foam balls at them. They're not protective masks like if you're in a wood shop. I wouldn't trust it to protect against like proper impact or anything, but against the foam balls, they do fine. And the mask also has the team indicator, which I think is the best place to have team indication on the face, because if I'm looking at you, you can probably see like my mouth area where my blaster might be hidden around my back or whatever. But you can pop out the little team color thing really fast and then slide in a different one. And that's also very fast to do, very practical if you wanted to use these team indications in an actual battle. So very cool design, and that's the mask. I covered the Dart Zone balls in my previous Dart Zone ball launcher review, but to restate, they are very similar to the Nerf Rival ammo, and they're also cross-compatible. So if you have a bunch of Nerf Rival gear and a bunch of Nerf Rival ammo or third-party ammo like headshot ammo, all of those balls will fit in these Dart Zone blasters, which I think is awesome. And the MSRP of the Dart Zone rounds is also pretty low. I believe it's about $10 for 50, which is a few bucks cheaper than Nerf and also a few bucks cheaper than like headshot ammo or other third-party alternatives, which is pretty cool. When you look close at the Dart Zone rounds though, the manufacturing consistency is not on par with the Nerf Rival rounds. They have more like air bubbles and weird inconsistency, like a sponge almost. I've ordered like 10 or 15 of different brands of third-party Rival compatible ammo, and you see this type of stuff in a lot of the cheaper ammo. So it kind of makes sense. It doesn't really negatively affect the performance that much. The consistency of the squishiness of the balls is solid, which in my opinion is more important, because if one's more dense than the other, it won't feed to the flywheels quite the same, so the consistency is crap. But these bubbles kind of affect the aerodynamics. I didn't really see a noticeable increase in performance, but it's worth pointing out and a reason to play with my new macro lens. I can get close to stuff, like uncomfortably close to stuff. Macro photography is so much fun. Back on topic, back on topic. Okay, I just overviewed everything. Let's see stuff on the firing range. Out on the firing range, shooting at my blaster board's target rig, starting out with the Accelerator running on alkalines using the hopper and using the Dart Zone ammo. Now I'll try to use a slightly higher rate of fire by constantly shaking it to ensure steadier feeding, or to promote steadier feeding. Now switching to Nerf Rival rounds, still on alkalines and still using the included hopper. Switched over to the Nerf rechargeable battery pack, but back to the Dart Zone balls and the standard hopper. now to show what happens when you use the Nerf Rival magazines. Switching blasters now and using the Dart Zone balls in the included hopper. Now I'll try to shoot some stuff. Now testing with Nerf Rival rounds. I was shaking too hard so that the balls couldn't go down the funnel. Switching to Nerf Rival magazines, but with the Dart Zone balls. And what you can't do with the hopper. Whoops. I just ball too hard. Oh man. And still with the Nerf magazines, but now feeding the Nerf Rival rounds. So a lot of the double feeds. So firing analysis, starting with the Accelerator. The hopper being fed with gravity is both good and bad. You can load it much faster than a spring magazine like comparable. To load 35 rounds by hand would take longer, but it's faster than loading like one of these. However, when you hold the blaster still like I do in my firing demos, the hopper doesn't consistently feed. It needs that jostling of the hopper to get the balls to feed down the throat. If you're at an outdoor Nerf war and you're running around, that's probably not going to be an issue at all. But if you're more stationary, or even if you're running and then you decide to hold still and you want to fire off 10 or 15 without moving, you have to sit there and shake the hopper to get it to feed consistently. If you're the type of Nerfer who doesn't take many shots but you want to be more precise, like sniper status, this would get really irritating because you take the extra time to line it up, you wait for your opponent to show himself or whatever, and then when you press the trigger it doesn't fire, and you might say, oh, you have to jostle it and then fire it again. You might have missed your shot. So it's kind of annoying. There are pros and cons there with gravity-fed hopper compared to magazines, but I'll let you draw your own conclusions on that based on how you approach the hobby. However, when you use the Nerf Rival magazines, this blaster does not function, or at least function very well at all. You can fire once, but then the second round in the magazine just doesn't feed. I don't want to do graphic work, so I'm just going to use my hands. So being a semi-automatic blaster, when you press the trigger, this is the injection arm, it goes like this and pushes the ball into the flywheels. So it's like pew, 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 pew. Sound effects not included. With the gravity-fed hopper, it works just fine because there's really not that much pressure on the balls pushing down. But when you use the spring-powered magazine, the spring pushes the ball down, so when you inject that first one, the spring is pushing these balls down onto the feeding arm, so the feeding arm isn't able to retract, so it seizes up. So you're able to fire one, but then the trigger locks up and you're not able to fire again. If you hold the blaster and shake the magazine a little bit, you can release the tension on the spring enough so the feeding arm retracts. Then you're able to fire again, but then you have to sit there and shake it again. It's more shaking and more annoyance than just using the gravity-fed hopper. So practically speaking, the Nerf Rival magazines do not work with the Accelerator. And that's the magazine firing any type of ammo I tested, including the Nerf Rival ammo and the Dart Zone balls. Other than that feeding issue, when it does fire, it fires with similar precision as Nerf Rival rounds and the Nerf Rival blasters, and the Chrono is comparable as well. And I'll mention those in a second, but now to the titanium. This has a similar hopper issue as with the Accelerator, but not to the same degree. Because it's a much smaller hopper and the funnel isn't pushing from quite as far away, it feeds more reliably. But a little bit of shaking is helpful, even if you just point the blaster down as you're priming it. For me, that was enough to prevent most misfires. Using the hopper, it fed pretty well with the Dart Zone balls and the Nerf Rival rounds, but 8 to 10 rounds with the hopper that's not particularly fast to reload makes this less desirable. What's more important, in my opinion, is the compatibility with the Nerf Rival mags. So the port is also compatible with the Nerf Rival mag like that, and when using Dart Zone balls, I experienced very few misfeeds. It double fed every once in a while, but not very often. And using that spring-powered magazine allows you to do hardcore parkour while you're nerfing, so you can shoot consistently sideways, upside down, in the Matrix or Inception, floating around with no gravity, whatevs. However, when I use Nerf Rival rounds through the Nerf Rival magazine, I experienced a ton of double feeding. I'm not completely certain what's causing that because it's not the magazine itself, it's only the magazine plus plus Nerf rival rounds. The magazine plus dart zone rounds fed pretty good, but interesting compatibility that I wanted to clearly articulate. Now to the Chrono, lots of data because 2 different battery packs and 2 different ammo for both. So first up, the Accelerator. When I was using 6D style alkalines, I achieved an average velocity of 97 feet per second when using the included dart zone rounds, and 91 feet per second when using Nerf rival rounds. Then I switched to the Nerf rechargeable battery pack and I achieved an average velocity of 99 feet per second with the included dart zone rounds, and 94 feet per second with Nerf rival rounds. So just a small boost from using that rechargeable battery pack. Then I put the titanium up with the chronograph and I got an average velocity of 95 feet per second with the included dart zone rounds, and the identical 95 feet per second with Nerf rival rounds. So there is the chrono data for both blasters. So final thoughts and overall opinion on each blaster, starting with the Accelerator. I really appreciate the compatibility with the Nerf rechargeable battery pack. Alkalines are expensive and heavy and just blah, and it makes that barrier to entry financially much lower to start playing with the dart zone blasters. Because if you already have Nerf rival gear, you already have a bunch of the ammo, you have some magazines, you have the blasters, and it's all sort of compatible. However, it's a pretty big disappointment that this blaster does not feed reliably with the Nerf rival magazines. It's clearly like supposed to, and that was a big selling point when Dart Zone first came out with these ball launchers. But it seizes up and it just doesn't work, and that's a big bummer. But if you don't go in with those expectations, maybe you'll like the blaster more. I was expecting to use the rival magazine, so it was kind of a bummer. 35 rounds in a hopper is still pretty high capacity, but it doesn't feed reliably, and I don't want to sit there shaking the blaster as I'm firing because, you know, that negatively affects accuracy, obviously. And something like the rival Nemesis has a much wider hopper, so it feeds reliably. You still can't tip the Nemesis upside down, but you can hold relatively still firing for a while. You really only have to shake the Nemesis when you get to the end of the hopper. This, you have to shake the whole time. So the design of the funneling system in the hopper could definitely use refinement. I do appreciate the 2 angled rails. Rails look awesome. Even if they're naked like that, rails look cooler than no rails. And it's compatible with the in-strike attachments, which is awesome. So overall opinion on the Accelerator is kind of meh. It really depends what you're looking for. I look at this blaster next to the rival Hera, and I would totally use the Hera over the Accelerator. Sure, it's only a 12 round capacity with the Nerf rival magazines compared to 35, but you can hold a bunch of the magazines preloaded and it reliably feeds. And the feeding reliability is a more important issue for me, because if I get my shot lined up and, you know, you just missed a bunch, you finally have a shot because your opponent got up, he's behind the couch or whatever, you're able to shoot him easily. And then if you dry fire and you're not able to fire, that is just annoying. So I would definitely gravitate towards the spring-powered magazines rather than gravity-fed hoppers, other than the Nemesis because that feeds more reliably. And the Nemesis is just freaking awesome. Mixed opinion, but I tried to explain my reasoning on each element so you could kind of figure out if it would work for you and your playstyle. Opinion on the titanium. Overall opinion is also mixed, similar to the Accelerator. I'm not a huge fan of the shotgun priming grip modification compared to the first generation that they came out with. For the first few primes it's fine, but this is a heavy prime. It's not like a lightweight strong arm or something like that. The spring is stronger because it's shooting at a much higher velocity. So after you fire it 50 or 60 times, and especially if your hands get a little moist because you're like, you know, doing sports, or there's a better way to say that. I start to sweat when I do stuff. When I do it, I walk up a flight of stairs and my palms are sweaty. And when that starts to occur, it's a little harder. Your hand starts to slip on the shotgun grip. But I do really appreciate the air restrictor. Thank you, Dart Zone. Because this is, oh my gosh, not a pleasant sound. But I do really like the rear grip modification. It's a more comfortable grip. I think it looks cool. It reminds me of like a laser gun. The included hopper is kind of meh. It only has a 10 round capacity though. The overall width isn't that much bigger for the 35 round hopper. So that makes the capacity way bigger, and it's not like a much larger blaster. It's not like adding a 35 round in-strike drum. Like that would be huge. And the feeding issue isn't as big a deal with the titanium like with the Accelerator, because you can't really sit still and fire this, because every time you pump it, you kind of move the blaster a little bit. And in my testing, that little bit of movement was enough to get pretty reliable feeding. It's still dry fired occasionally if it's not shaking perfectly, because it is a funnel. Sometimes the balls just don't go down the throat there. I'm not trying to be gross. That is considered the hopper's throat, or the funnel's throat. That's like a generic term. But when comparing the titanium to something like the rival Helios, it's really difficult to justify buying the titanium. The Helios is just so well refined. The trigger pull is just a little bit smoother. The magazine system is fantastic. And since it doesn't have that weird lever problem that the Apollo had to prime the blaster, the Helios is what I would gravitate towards. The titanium and the Accelerator come in at a lower price point than their Nerf rival competitors. So I can definitely see some people gravitating towards them, especially if you're buying 5 or 6 of them to arm like a bunch of people. That money totally adds up, and they do work pretty well. And at the end of the day, most of my issues are when I'm trying to use Nerf rival gear with their Nerf rival magazines and the Nerf rival rounds with these blasters. When you use the included hoppers and the included Dart Zone balls, there are fewer problems, if you don't mind shaking your blasters a little bit as you're firing. But I like the advancement on the compatibility. The Accelerator using the rechargeable rechargeable Nerf battery pack is really awesome. And the compatible tactical rail, it's not identical to the Instrike rail, but it's compatible with the Nerf attachments. So it's a slightly modified design, but still compatible. Pretty awesome. And I also really dig how quick it is to switch out your team. So I'm displaying blue right now. So if you switch teams really quickly and everybody has the Dart Zone blasters, you can very quickly switch from green being neutral or like assassin to red to blue. Or pick teams however you want. Or if you just want to make your blaster look cooler in your eyes, like I like the blue. I like the contrast the blue offers to the green. Like compared to all green, I just think that's kind of a blob of color. The blue makes it look cooler. So even if you don't use it as a team indicator, to customize it and make your blaster look cooler in your eyes, awesome. And it's not as like annoying as a flag hanging off your blaster like the Phantom Core blasters. So it's pretty obvious that Dart Zone is offering a direct competitor to the Nerf rival blasters. They're copying the concepts of the blasters, like very similar to the Apollos and the Helios. And the Accelerator is very similar to the Zeus or the Hera. Hera. Hurrah. Hurrah. I'm gonna say it however I want. Off. So an extended review to go over the two different blasters, the mask and the balls, offered by Dart Zone. Hopefully I've provided all of the objective information you need to make that purchase decision for yourself. If you're interested in purchasing anything I've mentioned today, I'll put buy links in the description box below. That concludes this video review. Let me know what you think of the extended review format when I clump multiple blasters together in the comment section below. That's it. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, bros, stay tactical.